Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Justin Gutierrez, and we have two special guests with us, William Keever and Julius Rice. And today we will be talking about peer pressure. So, I want to share some brief details of what happened to me when I was a kid in high school, going through peer pressure. So, I was going to the bathroom one day, and these upperclassmen saw me, and they go, "Hey, man, try this. It's really good. You'll love it. Oh, it'll be the best thing you've ever had." And so I said, "No, I don't do that stuff." So I tried to leave, and they go, "We won't let you leave here unless you try it." So I couldn't leave, so I just tried it once, and I pretended that I like it, but in reality, I didn't like it. So I pretended like I like it, and I said, "Oh wow, it's the best thing ever," and so they let me go off clean. Have you ever been involved in peer pressure? Has anybody tried to convince you to do something that you didn't want to do? Has somebody told you you need to do this? If so, this is an act of peer pressure. Health Corps has said that peer pressure happens little as 3 years old and happens as adults, which is pretty shocking. Peer pressure can affect grades, athletes, and later on your future, which is not very good, and can make you do things that are not legal.
The first angle we're going to look at today are the negatives associated with peer pressure. Firstly, peer pressure can result in illegal activity, especially when it results in gang affiliation. Peer pressure can also have an extremely negative effect on academic performance, especially in instances where teens encourage one another to slack off of school. One reason why we give in so easily to peer pressure is because life will often seem easier when we act like others around us, and this is especially seen in teens. Now we have an interview from a freshman here at Leesville High School. He will share his experience with peer pressure, as well as his family members.
Have you ever been peer pressured into things you didn't want to do?
Yes.
Can you share any incidents that stand out?
During the summer, in between 8th grade and freshman year, I got peer pressured into smoking marijuana.
Were they upperclassmen or same level?
Same level.
Do these things have an effect on your grades or other important activities such as sports?
They do not affect my grades, but it does affect sports of how much air I can breathe in and how much oxygen I can get throughout my body.
Have you ever been peer pressured during school?
Yes.
Can you name specifics?
Hitting a jewel.
Do you know anybody who's been affected by peer pressure besides you?
Yes, my brother. Before he started smoking a lot, how he got hooked was in 8th grade. He was all against it. He didn't want anything to do with drugs, but he got invited over to a friend's house, and his friend asked him if he wanted to smoke. He said no, and when he was lighting a flow, he pinched his nose and held it up to his mouth, and he said, "If you don't inhale, you'll die." So when he inhaled, that was the first time he did it, and that's how he got hooked onto it.
Next, we have an interview from an upperclassman at Leesville High School, who shares her experience with peer pressure and how it's influenced her decisions. Have you ever been peer pressured into doing something you didn't want to do throughout high school? If so, can you name any specifics?
Smoking, doing Xanax, sneaking out. Yeah, that's about it.
Have your friends been heavily affected by peer pressure?
Yeah.
Has that changed, like, your friend group?
Yeah, a lot.
Has peer pressure had an effect on things like grades?
Yeah, my grades were really bad till now because I made bad decisions because people around me did.
Has it had an effect on any other activities?
Well, I quit the sport I was good at, so...
Both interviews really show how peer pressure can negatively alter the lifestyles of students. I think a really interesting quote is this quote from Elizabeth Pozdiev. She's age 15 from Fairview Park, Ohio. She says, "There are a few kids who can be really nice if you're alone with them. But if they get with their friends, they're very careful about who they talk to and what they say. They want to be cool with their friends." I think we run into this a lot at Leesville High School as well. There are so many people who can be nice one-on-one. Next, we're going to look at the positive things that can come from peer pressure. Most people believe that peer pressure is only a negative thing, and that there's nothing positive that can come of it. But actually, there are quite a few positives. Often, students stated that their friends who play sports often give them encouragement to exercise and stay active. Generally, high-achieving students in the classroom will congregate at school. This can add to their motivation to do well academically, which can be a very positive thing for their future. Here we have an interview from a local student at Leesville Road High School who talks about how peer pressure affected him in a positive way.
Do you know any friends or that have been affected by these things?
Yeah, I know many friends. I have close friends that have been affected, and it's changed their way of life and their sports that they play.
Have you ever been peer pressured in a positive way?
I remember when I was in 8th grade, a lot of my friends were influencing me to get my physical so I can try for basketball, but it didn't work out. I didn't do it. I didn't get it, but that was a good peer pressure for me.
Have you ever been peer pressured during school?
Nah, I haven't.
Next, we have an interview from a coach at Leesville Road High School who talks about how he avoided peer pressure, but also mentions how people he knew and friends he knew were affected by peer pressure early on in high school.
Were you peer pressured throughout high school? If so, can you think of any time that stand out?
Me personally, I probably wasn't peer pressured too much in high school just because I made sure I stayed around good people and stuff like that, and we all had the same values and liked sports and knew to stay out of trouble, keep our grades up so we could actually do something with our life and stuff like that. So that's why I wasn't peer pressured, because I surrounded myself with good people.
Do you have friends who were peer pressured in doing things that had a negative effect on them?
Yeah, actually, some of the friends, like when you first get into high school and stuff like that, especially like y'all's age, you'll see them start to change because somebody offered them a cigarette or drugs or alcohol or something like that, and you can see that they start going in the opposite direction you are, and you just kind of got to split your ways with them or whatever, because they'll start getting into trouble and things like that, and you don't want to be a part of that situation. So, yeah, people change and things like that.
Both of these interviews provided a different perspective, as these guys were able to avoid the negatives that come with peer pressure, but had friends who were not able to do the same.
How does peer pressure affect teens in high school life? According to the website Your Life Counts, it says that to avoid peer pressure, you should make eye contact and say no forcefully with authority. The more certain you are in your refusal, the less people will bug you. There is always persistent people, but after you firmly say no, and if they push you on, just walk away, and they will see that you actually mean what you are saying, and don't fall into bad peer pressure. We found out that it is impossible to avoid bad peer pressure, but you can prolong it by surrounding yourself around good peers who have the same values as you in life. Put yourself in good situations and leave the pressure zone as quickly as you can.